How long gone? A rare Monday recording because of some scheduling. What time did you get home last night? Did you call it after I did, or did you keep it going?
I kept it going a little bit, not that long. Maybe another hour, but I just went home.
I got to say that the Disney party, which felt like a very, very high-end wedding reception, in a good way, honestly. Like, it was like, you know what I mean? It was like, if wedding receptions were more, if people spent Disney level money on wedding receptions, then I would go to more weddings.
So you're saying you like elaborate, fancy weddings? I mean, they had all the bases covered that I really needed, except for music. But
yeah,
the food stations were sublime.
The music is what made it. The music was so bad that it made it really feel like a wedding reception. You know what I mean? And the fact that Questlove was there, but not even DJing or playing bongos, felt like a miss.
Wow.
But I don't, I don't know whose job that is, but it's not mine.
I think Questlove's job there was to. You don't watch The Simpsons, but when Homer sees a donut, he kind of wiggles his fingers in a don't mind if I do sort of energy.
I'm familiar with that. Yes,
I figured you would be now. And I think Questy possesses some of that same energy.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, he was wearing a dashiki. It was an interesting interesting crowd, to say the least.
Yeah, I thought it was Io's dad, but it was just Questlove because they're wearing a similar kind of.
Io's dad looked a little less like he was trying. You know what I mean, in a good way. Whereas Questlove was like, I'm like, where do you get the murdered out Issey Miyake? It was definitely some designer shit. That's the problem.
Where'd you get the murdered out Agnes B cloak?
It was cloakish, actually. That's true. It was quite cloakish.
Agnes XL. Does Agnes?
I don't think Agnes has XL. She's French. She doesn't believe in that. She hates fat people.
Agnes, yeah. I've seen Carolyn try on the cardigan in her size, and it ain't her size. You know what I mean?
Those cardigans are all extra small.
Agnes B walked so Brandy Melville could run.
In that department, in the actual.
What department is that exactly? Is it fat shaming? Is that how it's pronounced in French?
I was gonna say cardigan. I don't know if you have to take it there, but yeah.
I think I went a different direction than what you did.
But yeah, the food, that pizza was really hitting the spot, because that delicious sashimi that Carolyn had for us after we finished, I loved, but it wasn't. That doesn't fill me up, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, yeah, going out, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk to our guests about this today, because it's a topic that I consider and I base most of my life decisions around, which is what I'm going to eat before I get hungover and what I'm going to eat after I get hungover. And those are, they're two very important things that need to, it's a yin and a yang. They need to exist. You can't have one without the other. And sashimi before is the move. Sushi before. You can't get anything better than that for a base when you're going to punish your organs with alcohol and drugs.
See, I just don't like saying base. It's like when people call like fish or chicken protein. Like, I really hate, what protein are you? Don't. It just makes it feel bad to me. Am I crazy?
You're not crazy. I know the direction that you're heading down, but I want you to dig deeper into that big brain of yours and use a different descriptor word other than bad. Get more specific.
I would say unappealing. It makes it sound like it's more functional than it is satisfying.
It's a clinical medical term, and not one that makes you sort of lick your chops in flavor anticipation.
Yeah, there's no chop licking when someone says, which protein would you like? It just doesn't. It sounds like you're at the doctor's office. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I wonder if there's any like foodies who use it in terms of like ejaculate. You know what I mean?
That's possible.
Like, I'm about to protein. Something like that. There's protein all over the sheet.
I'm fixing to protein is pretty good. That's good.
I'm fixing to protein is good. And then as soon as those awful childish words left my lips, I just thought of 24 hours or 9 hours ago when we did our last podcast, and I gave a shout out to my brother's girlfriend's mom. And So I know that she's listening to this right now, and I do apologize for that. But luckily, she's a good sport. She knows we're all adults, and we can make a joke about ejaculate.
That's okay.
That's how we all got here in the first place. Am I right, brother man?
But I do think that pizza. What was the pizza place called? I'd never had it before.
Apollonia.
It was delicious. I was really pleased with that being there. And the hand roll was very good too. And the fucked up cookie, I thought about getting one on the way home for a shame cookie, a shame car cookie, and then I was able to resist. So I'd like a pat on the back if you don't mind.
Yeah, this is me patting you on the back. Ooh.
Thank you.
Wow, so strong. I don't know where you're gonna pat me for taking a brown paper bag of cookies home for me, because when I walked up, the nice cookie people were like, "Oh, you got to go in there." They're like the thick. They're kind of like the Levon Bakery style.
They're scones. They're chocolate chip scones.
They're muffin tops. Their muffin can stop us. We're all the way up. They're meant to be, like a fine ribeye steak, black and blue. It's gooey in the middle. It's chewy on the outside, and the first thing you do when you walk into a party, you don't want to eat just 800 calories worth of chocolate chip cookie. It's just going to sit. It's going to be a bad base of non-protein, Chris.
Okay, I don't want to.
I hate to use those words, but then on the way out, Mamma Mia, and I was like, "Oh, can I get a cookie to go? Do you have like a to-go box?" And she gave me 6.
Yeah, of course.
Plus 2 miniature cinnamon rollouts.
The cinnamon rolls were looking fucked up. Did you try any of it? Did you try?
There may have been a cinnamon roll with the morning coffee this AM, and I am so sorry to Hubies for cheating on our diet together.
But how good was the cinnamon roll?
So good, man. You know how good a cinnamon roll tastes when you have been when you have been eating cauliflower rice, eating a potato.
No,
a sweet potato is cheating.
Yeah, a cinnamon roll is one of those things that I don't really think about that often, but I really, really like when I have it. And there was when we were in London, we were staying at the hotel in Chelsea. There was like a cinnamon roll place right next to the hotel, and finally, I was just like, "All right, fuck it, I'm getting one of these." And it pays off almost more than a cookie to me, or like a croissant. Yeah, it's different.
To me, a cinnamon roll. I have a great cinnamon roll memory where we used to go to the Lake Arrowhead during the winter time, and there was like some recipe I found online for like a 24-hour same. It all happens in the same bowl kind of thingy.
Sure.
But it's a kind of a cold, snowy day. Maybe you're taking your shitty kids up to upstate or whatever. You're going to Ojai, and then you make the little cinnamon roll dough the night before. You wake up, plop it into the oven because it's like an overnight proof kind of thing.
Yeah.
Pop them in the oven, and then you wake up to the smell of Cinnabon in your own home. Maybe a little smoke is coming out of the chimney. The frost is melting on the tip of a hummingbird's nose.
You're really setting the stage. I like that, and that seems like the perfect ideal environment to ingest a cinnamon roll. Mm-hmm. I feel like the other way to do it is to be at the airport or like at the mall. That's what you know what I mean? Like a true, but my mom made cinnamon rolls all the time, of course. Like we had the ones in the can all the time, and they were delicious. Like I would rather have those than a gourmet one.
I think there's a good kind of cross between the two of those. There's a compromise where I was at Erewhon, and they have their own sort of like non-GMO, blah, 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 crazy cinnamon roll in a can, but it's like literally the same one in the can. You pop it open like you get it down at Kroger or whatever.
Damn, you still get the Kroger feeling with the Erewhon price. I like that. That's exactly what I'm looking for. That's exactly
Kroger feeling, Erewhon price, and but that one, that does remind me of Chapel Moan when she said, "Y'all, I tried this Hailey Bieber smoothie, and it's just a milkshake or something like that." This bitch doesn't know about sea moss. This bitch doesn't know about,
unfortunately,
hydrocolonic acid, whatever.
Unfortunately, I think that Chapel is right, and she's speaking truth to power and kind of giving a voice to the voiceless.
Who's the voiceless group in this equation?
People who know that smoothie is just dessert. It's not a smoothie. It's a milkshake. She's right. And I think people are denying it. People want to think it's healthier than it is when it's probably only slightly healthy, is my guess.
Okay, well, this depends on the definition of the word healthy. But I would say that a milkshake is sort of void of nutrients other than
No, I know
the
it's not actually a
calcium you're going to
milkshake.
get.
I know it's not actually a milkshake.
It tastes very sweet like a milkshake to Kaylee's untrained Midwestern palate, who's used to eating bowberry pancake syrup and things like that. But there's also a lot of amazing nutrients in there. Who knows if your body is being absorbed or your body is absorbing them?
But I've had a couple sips and it's too sweet. That's what I'm saying as far as that's what reminds me most of the milkshake.
Let's hold the milkshake sommelier talk off because our guest is here, Chris. We don't want to keep him waiting.
We would hate to keep him waiting. I'm sure he has some opinions on milkshakes. Jay McInerney. Oh wow! Okay, hold on one second. We're gonna get into it. Give me 1 second.
Not another word, Jay.
Because the sun just hit me in a bad way. See what I'm saying? It's coming through the.
Oh no, Chris! Oh no.
There we go. All right, we're moving. Company move. All right, let's see. Our guest today is Jay McInerney, a writer that you guys are all probably familiar with. Several books over the years: Bright Lights, Big City, Story of My Life, Brightness Falls. Et cetera, et cetera. But he's actually, I think he's in L.A. We're all in L.A., which is rare for How Long Gone. So let's tap in with Jay and see what's going on. Jay, what are you doing in L.A.? I find that strange. That's all.
I do too, but I've been visiting for years.
Sure.
Usually staying at the Chateau Marmont, and
must be nice. Must be nice.
Well, Jay, I feel like maybe you might have a nice little bungalow in Malibu. I don't know if you're really in K-Town right now. Am I correct?
No, I'm in Malibu. I'm in the Colony, actually.
Okay.
So I had a friend who had a house here, and I would borrow it occasionally over the years. And I always said to myself, I love it here, but thank God I don't own it because it'll be gone it'll be washed away in 20 years. But then it turned out that after my last stay, Rick Hilton told me there was a house for sale in the Colony, and so my wife and I went down to see it, and we really kind of just took to this idea of it. And by the way, I think this is the last unrestored house in the Colony. It was built in 1932, probably by a set designer, and they haven't done much to it since. But it's right on the beach, right on the ocean, and
love that.
Next thing I knew, we had bought it, and I love to come out here. I really do. And the history of the Colony is pretty interesting. I mean, it's not as bohemian as it used to be, but it's still pretty.
There's still some dirt under the fingernails.
I've been to some 4th of July parties at the Colony that didn't feel very bohemian, to say the least. Is what I would say.
Yeah, the valet Parkers were bohemian at least.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
I mean, last month Flea found my lost dog, so that was pretty cool.
Oh, so okay, the neighbors are friendly. That's always a plus of any.
I feel like that's the starting, a beautiful start to a poem or a haiku. Almost,
Flea found my dog.
Elegant prose. I feel like if I was in your shoes and Rick Hilton gives me a real estate tip, I do whatever I can to buy that house so I don't embarrass myself in front of real estate baron Rick Hilton.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. The pressure was on.
That's hard to do. But,
yeah, I'm selling cars. I'm selling teeth.
So all right. What's your routine like when you're in Malibu? Are you a water baby like me? Do you worship the ocean? Do you love the healing properties?
I love the ocean. In fact, I can hear it from almost every part of the house, and especially the master bedroom. And also, I had just taken up surfing 2 or 3 years before I arrived here, and now I can just walk out.
So all right, so you and Jonah Hill are out there fighting for the waves. This is good. This is what I want to see. This is what I want to see.
Yeah, I ran into him very early on. He was out there.
Damn.
No, he's always out there. That's the only place he is. He's not making any movies. He's surfing.
Okay, out of all the Jonah Hillses and the Diplo's Brazilian girlfriends out there, do any of these young whippersnappers know who you are or recognize you, or is it more the old dogs out there?
Yeah, I have pretty good recognition in LA, considering that I'm
There we go, Jay.
Considering that I'm a writer,
Yeah, look,
seriously, yeah.
yeah, well, you come from an era though where writers were a little more visible, I feel like, in a different way, in like a real old media way. Now writers have to use Instagram, which isn't your best feature, I would say.
No, I feel like I was part of a generation that was sort of the last generation of writers that could be read and heard and seen and somewhat influential the way that Norman Mailer and Gore Vidal and Truman Capote were. And
I would agree. I would agree with you.
I feel like it's an entirely different landscape now. And
yeah, when's the last time somebody interviewed you while you smoked a cigarette on television? You know, I feel like it must be
yeah, that's a lost
decades now at this point.
I did that a lot.
I know. We know. I mean,
that's one of my dreams. One of my life's dreams is to light up a cigarette on national television.
We used to smoke in restaurants. I mean,
sure.
that I remember. I'm in my early 40s. Like I remember that when I was in my early 20s. What I romanticize more is on the plane. That just seems so fucked up.
Well, I remember when they changed it to only the back of the plane.
Okay, and you're not sitting back there, so you had to. I understand.
No,
you stopped smoking.
I was because I wanted to smoke.
Okay.
When I first published Bright Lights, Big City, I was living in Syracuse, New York, and I was studying with Raymond Carver. And so I started getting called down to New York to go on the Today Show and shit like that. And so I would get on People's Express. And
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with People's Express. That's an airline.
People's Express was a short-lived budget airline.
Okay.
Great name.
Easy Jet of New York State.
And they
had
a route between Syracuse and LaGuardia. So I would jump on that plane and smoke up a storm, and then I would get off and I would do my thing in New York.
See how many cigarettes you could smoke in 38 minutes on your flight from Syracuse to LaGuardia?
Raymond Carver would be proud.
Oh, yeah, Ray was a chimney.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, I hate to joke about it because he died of lung cancer, but he didn't have much then. He quit drinking about 10 years before he died, and in fact, the first time I met him, he was visiting his editor, Gordon Lish, and I was in my apartment in the Village, recovering from a night of drinking and doing coke, and so my editor called me up to say, Raymond Carver's coming down to your apartment. I said, yeah, sure, and I hung up, and about 10 minutes later, my buzzer rings, and it indeed looks like Raymond Carver.
It looks like him. It looks like him.
So he came upstairs, and I was just barely awake, and finally I thought one way to wake up was to do more coke, and so
smart.
So
smart.
So he and I spent the next 7 hours in my apartment talking about literature and getting really high.
I bet you guys were talking. I bet you guys were talking a lot. Yeah, I bet you had a lot to. You guys probably wrote a couple books together in that 7-hour period. Just had to get it out
very fast, and then we realized that he was about to miss his reading at Columbia University, which was one of the reasons that he had come to New York, and so I convinced him to get on the subway, because that was the only way to get to Columbia from the Village in 20 minutes. And he was very skeptical about the subway. But
I don't like being in the subway on coke either, so I get it.
Yeah, that's a fair. Yeah, I would say that's a fair.
Really ruins the high. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a fair way to. It's a fair way to think about it.
It's not the ideal way to enjoy your coke high.
the subway can ruin any high. Really, I don't want to limit it to coke. Kind of anything. It will take the wind out of your sails.
Okay, so you're coming down, then you zip over to Columbia University.
Yeah.
Did you go with him, or did you stay home?
I went with him. And so,
okay.
So luckily there were some other readers who preceded him. One of them was Harold Brodkey, who's no longer a household name, but anyway, he finally got up there, and he read this story, Put Yourself in My Shoes. A very long short story for him, but he read it in about 3 minutes flat. It was
it's like you guys are gonna get your money's worth, but I'm not gonna drag this out. I'm not gonna drag it out.
As if he was being held at gunpoint for some reason.
Yeah. I've never heard anybody read so fast. And Carver in general was a very slow speaker. There was a lot of pauses,
but he got through it quick. He moved through it.
You got the feeling that everything he said was meditated, and he was a cautious kind of person when he wasn't drinking or when he wasn't high. But anyway, that I just felt like since he couldn't drink, maybe he would enjoy some of the.
Oh, of course, yeah. I love that idea. When I first started doing drugs, I did coke without drinking for 6 months when I was like 20, and everybody thought I was crazy. And I think maybe I was onto something, according to the story you just told. Maybe I was onto something.
Yeah, well,
you know?
As long as you like being on coke.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Well, not long after that, my girlfriend, Marla Hansen, convinced me to stop doing coke, and I couldn't understand why I was falling over so much when I stood up from the table, and of course that was because you can't drink a liter of vodka without doing cocaine.
That's exactly right.
Without
That's exactly
getting
right.
drunk.
They call it a straightener for a reason, huh?
Yeah. Those two are holding hands and taking you to bed after the sun rises. That's not.
Yeah, actually, I was gonna ask. In terms of wine pairings, our first pairing for this evening, what would you pair well with a fine cocaine?
That's a great question. Great
Chablis?
question. What are we pulling out of the cellar?
Yeah.
At the time, the answer was Absolut Vodka.
Sure.
That was pretty much, I think, all we drank then. I think Stoli came first. There was Stoli, and then there was Absolut, and eventually there was Sky Vodka. But straight up vodka was usually the drink of choice. Although I think champagne goes well with Coke.
Yeah,
that's right.
Classic.
That's kind of the ultimate. I guess you're right.
When you say straight up Absolut Vodka, do you mean like in a martini, or do you just mean vodka rocks? That's it.
Pretty much vodka rocks. I mean, I think I sometimes put the vermouth in there just to feel civilized, but
sure. I mean, I think Absolute had such a moment because of all the advertising. I feel like it was like a big revolution.
Amazing advertising.
The advertising was so good at that time.
They asked me to do an ad, and I turned them down.
Why'd you turn them down, Jay? Why'd you turn them down?
Well, because I felt, I mean, it seems like a really silly notion at this point in 2024, but I sort of felt like it was compromising for a writer to sell his endorsement. In other words, even though I did drink Absolut Vodka, I thought, I shouldn't take money to say that I'm consuming something, whether or not I am. And I turned down a lot of ads at that time. And
really. That's interesting. I mean, that's so. It's also like it's interesting to think about like big brands coming.
Doers.
Doers
was another one.
Okay, so it's alcohol brands coming for you guys because they knew that you were using their product.
Yeah, there wasn't any television advertising or magazine advertising for cocaine at that time. And,
sure. So Doers was the best thing you were gonna have. Best option you're gonna have.
You could get a Coke spoon in the back of a Hustler. That's about it.
It's not going further.
Some jewelry, some inspired jewelry. So you were an early influencer, is what you're saying, and you turned them all down, and that just made them want you even more, right?
Yeah, I turned down the ads. On the other hand, I realize now that I was doing photo sessions, for like Interview Magazine in like Armani, and they were detailing, listing all the clothes that I was wearing. So maybe I wasn't nearly as pure as I thought I was. Tama Janowitz, who did a lot of these ads, was quite furious with me for.
I mean,
but at the time, it seemed important to me, and
at the time you didn't need to do it to make a living.
The thing about the Absolute ad, it would have been cool and aged well. That's the thing. It'd be like a thing to have. But I mean, we talked to
it would be in a Toshin book.
We talked to a lot of musicians on this podcast, and we love to ask them about stuff they've turned down. And it's truly amazing how many monetary mistakes people have made because of ethics or morals that they no longer have. You know what I'm saying? It's like they're like looking back 10 years.
Well, I mean, at the time, it's not a mistake.
No.
But
hindsight, they're like,
no. Jay didn't know that the only way a writer can make money in 2024 is by endorsing products on social media.
That's right. No, I think you could have an uptick. Maybe you could get in the Reese Witherspoon book club or something. Really move some units. It's still possible.
Reese. I don't know much about her book club, but I know that she really wanted to do the movie of my third novel, which is called Story of My Life, and I really wanted her to do it. And unfortunately, the rights were all tangled up. But I think she's a really good actress. Strangely enough, I read to her third or fourth grade class when I was in Nashville.
Wow.
Like many, many years ago. Obviously, I don't know. I would have been maybe more like seventh or eighth grade.
That's cool.
She went to this She went to this prep school in Nashville, and I was living part-time there at the time.
What the hell were you doing in Nashville?
I was married to a Nashvilleian.
Okay, that explains it.
As I said, it was part-time, and ultimately it didn't take because, Nashville's it's still the kind of place that, to a certain extent, where people, you go to a party and people ask you what church you attend. And,
that's right. I'm from the South, so I'm very familiar with that line of questioning.
This is considered polite conversation.
Yeah, you're like, I don't what? Yeah, we were at the Emmys last night. We saw Reese Witherspoon, and we both thought to ourselves that she really had that like celebrity glow, like the A-list glow that us commoners cannot achieve no matter what we do.
Yeah,
and I feel like that's few and far between these days.
Yeah, she does. Yeah, I saw her most recently at a premiere in the Hamptons for one of her rom-coms, and she was very nice, and she remembered our attempts to make happen.
I mean, why does that always happen? Why is the right stuff so complicated? Because I feel like there's always a bad story.
Said what the name of this
story of my life.
The story of your life.
No, it wasn't my life. It was
okay.
It was a story. It was a story of a
simply a title
21-year-old girl who used that phrase a lot. Story of my life. My old man sent me a check, bounced. Story of my life. That was, she had a kind of a Valley Girl speak. And I mean, Reese would have been great in the role, I must say. And this was just after she had formed her own production company. And I think she's great, but I can't say, I can't say that we're great buddies or anything, but go Reese. I'm glad she's still looking good.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. No, but to the rights thing, why is it so complicated? Like, why isn't it cut and dry? Because they expire and then somebody, you know what I mean? It takes so long for the studios to do anything?
Yeah, well, also, people, the personnel at the studios changes a lot. Like, I was just reading this morning about, the Netflix, the Netflix executive who got kicked out of Netflix, and therefore the Prince documentary may never see the light of day. And
the New York Times Magazine story.
The New York Times Magazine, exactly. And that's kind of typical of what can happen. And once a certain executive is gone, the rival executives don't have any interest in helping her project along. I'll give you a personal example. So the rights to this trilogy that I wrote, starting with Brightness Falls, were sold and to Amazon. Then the guy who was at Amazon, whose name escapes me right now, was Me Too'd. He was
all right. So we're gonna have the project is slowing down. I see where this is going.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, apparently. I mean, among other things that he was criticized for, is he said that he was only going to watch Pretty Little Lies if the girls took their shirts off. And
okay, look, I thought that was a great show. If they took their shirts off, it probably. I mean, does it hurt the plot? But I don't think. No. I don't think you need to kind of make that declaration if you work.
They don't need to be topless for the whole thing. But
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Okay.
In 2017, it wasn't the right thing to say.
That's right.
Sure.
So
that's right.
So this project had been sold. We've done various versions of the pilot.
Wow.
And then the executive who came in and took over his job basically threw out everything that he had been working on, including a George Sanders project. I mean,
so this guy had good. This Me Too executive did have good taste, at least.
He did have good taste, but it reminds me of the story of what happens when a new male lion comes into a pride that's lost its leader, and the new male lion immediately kills the young male lions that are in that pride before it takes over. And that's what happens in Hollywood when an executive gets fired. The little lions get killed.
Yeah. So these things toil away, and in this particular instance, did you write the pilot? Like, did you stay with it, or did you just kind of let them do it?
Honestly, I think it's probably gonna get picked up somewhere. Because I just finished the fourth and last
Oh,
the
there's a
sequel to
final.
this
There's a final chapter in the trilogy.
Yeah. So what once was a trilogy has now become a tetralogy.
Okay,
Tetralogy?
I didn't know that word. So excuse me, I didn't use it correctly.
But now the problem will be that Amazon will claim that they've spent all this money on the project, and anybody who wants to take it over will have to pay them.
Like buy them out almost.
Yeah, and that's called the back end. And
Sure, yeah, exactly.
so, so that's another reason that things get
Yeah, of
tangled up
course.
in
So
the-
so you finished a fourth. Okay, and this story's been going on for a long time, and it's
yeah,
I mean,
well, starting with the stock market crash in 1987. And
yeah. So where do they land in the foot? Don't give it away, obviously, but where are they in their lives? Where are Russell and Corinne in their lives?
Well, they both have just turned 60, and in my mind, I started writing about this young, really glamorous couple, and I think
Sure,
that's you can't write about people in their 70s and 80s having affairs. So
no, that's true. That's not what they're doing, really.
this is definitely it, and it starts in the pandemic, and it's called "See You on the Other Side."
Okay, great title, and I mean,
Well, the place I
think
got the title was I was visiting a friend in Brooklyn, of all places, and I think you guys were there recently. No, I was actually visiting someone at the very beginning of the pandemic, and we went to the deli, and the deli had closed, and there was a sign slapped on the door that said "See you on the other side," and at that time. It seemed like things would be closed for a week or two at most.
Yeah.
And I remembered the sign, and I eventually put it in my novel, and it suddenly seemed like a good title. So
how did you work on it a lot during COVID? Was that the main production phase?
I wrote a number of things during COVID, but one was a memoir, and one was this novel. And
and what's coming out first?
Novel.
Okay.
My agent looked at the memoir and she said, "Jay, I can't tell you how many lawsuits I see here."
Okay, so do you think the memoir
Which
will never
means it's a good memoir?
Yeah, exactly. Do you think it'll never see the light of day, or are you willing to kind of take a few things out to appease the agent and get this thing over the line?
Once the novel is to bed, I think I'm gonna
Yeah.
see what I can do with the memoir. There's actually some TV people looking at the memoir who are very interested, but again, I'm not sure what the legal ramifications are. But the problem, it's not the famous people that you have to worry about, because
it's the ex-wives. It's the ex-wives. We know exactly who it is.
Exactly. I mean, Mick Jagger can't sue me, but my ex-girlfriend can.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I mean, I think that the thing about a memoir, and when I've talked to people that have written them, especially people that are like on the younger side, they're kind of just like, don't do that. Until don't do it. It's going to ruin if you like your life, don't do that, because it will ruin your life, because people will be very mad. And if you don't make people mad, then it's also not a good book. So it's a lose-lose situation for the writer.
So I'm not sure at this point what's going to happen with the memoir, but it's there, Maybe it'll have to wait until I'm gone.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. If it's finished and it's sitting there, I mean, if it's there, it's done. It's going to come out.
You'll take the posthumous lawsuits. Well, what do you think? How do you think Keith McNally navigated his memoirs? I feel like he's got a couple burned bridges, right?
Yeah. Well, did Keith's come out?
Not yet. It comes out in November. I think it comes out in November.
Well, I tried to help him, and the last I heard, his agent had kind of fired him. But it's a pretty spicy story, and I'm looking forward to it. But Keith,
who isn't?
I've known Keith since pretty much since 1980. When I first went to the Odeon, and he almost kicked me out, and then again when I was publishing my first novel, I had to go down to the Odeon because the Random House lawyers told me that Keith McNally could sue my ass off, and so I went down hat in hand with a copy of the book, and I
so for making the restaurant a character, he could come after you, kind of.
Supposedly. Well, people were doing coke in the bathrooms, and
you're not lying. You're not lying. I mean, people are still doing coke in those bathrooms. Nothing has changed.
So Keith said that he read the book. I don't know whether he did or not, but to this
he might have skimmed it.
Well, to this day, he will tell people, as he often has to, that he didn't think he didn't think he'd ever, hear about this book again. So he just gave me permission. He said, "Sure, whatever, go ahead."
See, that's how it works the first time, and then it never works like that again.
And then he said later that he was shocked about 9 months later. He was walking up Fifth Avenue in the then Brentano's bookstore, which is now probably a CVS pharmacy. My book was there was like 50 copies of my book in the windows, and with a picture of the Odeon on the cover, and he was shocked, but it was too late because he'd already signed off.
But this seems good for the restaurant. Like overall, I think it's a win.
Well, look, we've been arguing for years about whether I owe him money or he owes me money, but I think he owes me money.
He owes you money. I'll settle it right here.
As long as they buy a slice of pie before they go do a bump in the bathroom, it's win-win for everyone, right?
Yeah, who cares? Yeah,
That's right.
exactly. French fries don't pay for themselves. That's tough. I mean, writing the memoir, that's crazy that it's done, and it's just like do you want it to? How badly do you want it to come out? Like, are you like, I finished this, I need it to come out, or are you kind of like, whatever, I did it?
I'm a little ambivalent about it because I know it's going to cause trouble, and I mean, this would be my 13th or 14th book, so it's not as if I'm desperate to see my name on the cover of a book.
Sure. You're like, this ain't my first rodeo. We can hold on this. How now? Did your current wife read the book?
My current wife read. That's a good question. Whether she read the memoir. Yeah, I think she did read it. Yes.
Well, did she say she read it, or did she actually read it? You know what I mean?
No, she really did read it. But fortunately for both of us, the story ends before we get together. So.
Oh, see, okay, so you're free and clear on that. You're not getting charged. That's smart. You're smart.
She doesn't have any reason to be mad at me.
Well, I'm sure she has some reason to be mad at you. But
write the last chapter involving her. Give it to your publisher, and then once you croak, throw it on there, and then straight to Barnes and Noble we go.
I'm sure she's younger than you, so she'll have to deal with that. But either way, I mean, it won't. It'll soften the blow a little bit. Let's say that.
Chances are very good that she's going to outlive me. I'm afraid.
Sure. I like that you're realistic
for a multitude of reasons. Well, speaking of outliving you, right before we started talking, you mentioned milkshakes being a potentially or a good hangover cure.
Oh yeah,
I'd like to hear more about that, please.
Yeah, that's my go-to hangover cure: chocolate milkshake. And my third wife said she could always tell when I had a really rough night when I drank a milkshake the next day.
When you've got the brown stain around your lips.
Yeah, like a child with chocolate milk. Where is where is your New York City milkshake spot?
Unfortunately, for many, many years there were every other block had a Greek diner, and that was the Greek diners were the place to get the milkshake. And unfortunately they've kind of closed one by one. There's one on 6th Avenue.
Because are you still downtown? Are you still basically?
I'm downtown.
Okay.
There's one on 6th Avenue in Waverly that I go to.
Okay.
Also, there's a Shake Shack near me, which
so you've modernized. You go get a concrete or whatever they're called.
The Shake Shack shakes are pretty damn good, I have to say. I mean,
it is in the name. It is in the name. I would kind of be.
Have you met a chocolate milkshake that you didn't like though? You know what I mean, Jay?
Not really. I mean, I can make them pretty well myself too.
Oh, okay. Because are you good in the kitchen, or are you just wine? Okay, you are.
I am good. I mean, I don't cook in New York City, but when I'm not in New York City, I cook. But it seems foolish to cook in New York City when there's 9 or 10,000 restaurants to be explored.
It's so nice to hear that. This is the hill,
and 9 or 10 square feet in your kitchen. Sorry for interrupting.
Exactly.
Your kitchen's bigger than mine. I'm guaranteeing that. But I still don't. I feel exactly the same way. I'm like, why would I? This is it. This is ground zero for the best of everything. Why would I? Why would I attempt to do that?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't use the delivery services either because I hate the way they rip the restaurants off. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd rather go out and see who's out there. You know,
Man, I'm so with you. The delivery service thing, in a pinch, I will do it if I have to. But the experience is just so bad. Everybody loses. Everybody loses.
no,
The delivery driver, the restaurant, the customer, no one wins.
People walking on the sidewalk who have to dodge electric motorcycles.
They might have it the worst. They might have it the worst.
Yeah, but I'm a restaurant lover, and for me, you know, the theater that was once nightclubs and bars has to some extent been replaced by restaurants, and
Absolutely.
you know, it's not always the case that that there's a correlation between the quality of the food and the quality of the scene. In fact, it's usually the opposite. But
that's right.
It's like all of Keith's restaurants. You want to go and see the people, you know,
for sure.
Yeah.
You want to see the models and actors and just the downtown kid.
I mean, it's interesting because at Balthazar, it's so many. Because I live really close, and I feel like the crowd it's still locals, even though it's so many tourists. It doesn't the tourists don't deter locals from going, which is a very hard thing to achieve.
It's true. It's actually true. The Odeon as well.
Yeah, for sure.
The Odeon has become a more of a place for people in the neighborhood.
Well, it's the Condé Nast cafeteria as well when they move downtown during the day.
Yeah, it's become the Condé Nast cafeteria.
It's I think that's Keith's biggest strength is he can create a restaurant. I mean, or operate one that polices itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing what Keith has done for New York, but you don't go to Keith's restaurant to reinterpret your vision of cuisine. You know? It's like,
that's a very nice way to put it.
Wow, you know? That's the same thing that I say, except you said it with so many better words.
But you know, it's like there's only so many ways that you can do the frisee salad with goat cheese and lardons. You know,
I don't like food enough to care. That's the thing. Like, I don't like food enough to have a life-changing experience after a fucking 15-course. It's just the experience is what you're going for. For me, you know, for me, it's like I don't
the hum of the room. But yeah, you don't go there for the food or whatever you said so much more eloquently.
Yeah, you know, we were talking about Shake Shack. I mean, Danny Meyer's been a friend of mine all these years as well. But you know, I was sort of furious with Danny when he banned smoking in his restaurant at Union Square Cafe years ago. And I always used to say you definitely didn't go to Danny's restaurants for the girls, you know, because they
sure that's not what they got on offer there. Union Square Cafe is like fully back too, correct? Like it's still
it moved a couple of blocks, but
yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
But he, I mean, you know, he went on to open so many places, and most of them have been successful. Although he got a great deal of grief at the beginning of the pandemic.
Oh yeah, he did. I remember that now.
Yeah, well, he accepted what is a PPF loan, and
everybody. I mean, why I can't get mad at somebody for accepting free money from the government. What's that's their business.
It depends on if that loan money is going towards his fourth mortgage for the lake house or whatever.
I don't think he needed the money that bad. I think he was giving it to his employees.
Doesn't need much more, but you know
he wasn't buying diapers with the money, is what I was saying.
Yeah.
His Union Square Cafe, I believe, opened in 1985, and it was really a wonderful place to go back then. You know, because he had much more of a sort of Italian Mediterranean vision than a French classical cuisine vision. And that same year, Gotham Bar and Grill opened nearby. David Boulay opened Montrachet, and suddenly it was like downtown restaurants were kind of cool. I mean, Keith and his wife had started it all in 1980 with Odeon. Mm-hmm. And then his brother opened Indochine, which was another hot place.
Indoshine's kind of back. It's it's wild. The food's pretty good, but it's just, to me, it's just too much like a Mr. Chow, but not Mr. Chow. I just would rather go to Mr. Chow. That's just me. But
Chow, another place that I don't go for the food. What say you, Jay?
Actually, I kind of like the menu. You know,
damn it.
My man,
there's
my man.
there's some good stuff on there.
Okay.
There's some good
Yeah,
stuff. I mean,
the fried rice for 97 is wonderful, guys. I love that.
Yeah, but it was amazing when I first moved to New York. There wasn't much that was downtown in terms of eating, and that was why Odeon was such a kind of landmark restaurant. There was nothing. There was virtually nothing in Tribeca.
well, especially in Tribeca. I was going to say Tribeca was sleepy until 5 years ago. I mean, kind of. It's still
So back
that's the
then it
whole
was
appeal.
mostly just like oil barrels on fire and
Yeah.
carjackings and muggings.
Yeah, I mean, well, if that. I mean, that was kind of Soho. Whereas Tribeca, you could walk through Tribeca and you wouldn't see a soul for blocks and blocks.
Okay.
You know?
That's what I mean when I say sleepy. It's literally like there's just nobody around.
It's
Like
a tumbleweed going down the
yeah,
street.
which is so rare. That's what New York is so interesting, and why I always tell people that I feel so safe is because there's just always people around, always. And there was
Yeah, you know, it's a lot of my friends from elsewhere ask me if New York is going to hell in a handbasket, and
yeah.
I don't know. It obviously the pandemic put a dent in things. The migrant crisis is serious, but I still feel awfully safe in New York compared to the late 70s when
Yeah, sure.
basically, you know, in 1979, everybody I knew got mugged. You know, I was the only person I know who wasn't successfully mugged because I twice ran away from muggers, and I was fast enough. But
oh, great.
everybody's apartment was broken into. I did have my Volkswagen Bug stolen twice, and the second time I never got it back.
I was gonna say twice is better than, you know, at least you got it back once.
Yeah, I got it back once.
Well, even though this safety aside, do you still think that New York is the center of the universe?
I keep waiting for a plausible alternative, but certainly LA has become much more culturally relevant in the last 10, 15 years in terms of the art world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, the movie industry was always here.
But everybody opened here. It's crazy. Every gallery opened here.
Yeah.
Everyone, and they can get these giant, beautiful spaces for, you know, half the price.
Yeah. Well, it's true that, and there's much more space here, and you know, certainly, you know, I think the restaurant scene has gotten pretty interesting, and so I mean, I would say it's New York or LA.
Yeah.
I you know, I went to Miami for a while, and
What were you trying to do? Were you avoiding taxes, or you just wanted some sun?
no, I was just, you know, getting my wife fell in love with Miami for a while, so
I get it.
we used to rent a place there for like
Key Biscayne or like Miami Beach?
Miami Beach.
Okay.
I love Miami. You know, it's in doses.
In doses,
It can be really special.
Yeah, I don't know. There's something still a little ersatz to me about, you know, like the restaurants that open. They're all versions of someplace, you know, from Las Vegas or New York, and
you don't want your Carbone on the beach. I get it.
Yeah, well, that's Carbone. There's the
I totally get. I'm with you on that.
That's the hottest restaurant in America probably right now. It's in terms of, you know, whether you can get in or not. It's Carbone in Miami Beach. It's
for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's the most. What did you have
a lot of sports stars, a lot of hip hop stars, a lot of.
It's the Noma of Florida, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. What were you driving in Miami? You have the orange Lambo, the Corvette. What are we pulling out? White Range Rover?
I was driving an Aston Martin.
There we go.
Okay. God damn it. You know, I just drove one. They let me borrow one for the weekend, and it was the SUV. It was really nice, but
really?
No one told me it was going to be bright orange with bright orange interior. So I was going to Philadelphia of all places.
I thought that color was patented by Lamborghini.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's just a slight differentiation on the shade, you know, to make it legal. But the Aston Martin, but you weren't driving the SUV, you were driving the sedan.
No, the coupe, the DB.
Okay.
Yeah, the DB11. But yeah, I'm, you know, fortunately, I don't think there's a lot of cliche encrusted around Aston Martin, whereas the Lambo is like the, you know, the tech bro vehicle.
For sure. They've been ruined. No, Aston Martin's for the heads. Like, I think many people pass over that when they're looking for a car at that price range.
But yeah, and the Ferrari's the sort of third marriage, late midlife crisis vehicle, but they're great cars.
So are you saying you've had one or you haven't
No,
had one?
I have not actually. I haven't. But
Okay,
so
that's good.
so what are you taking down to Nobu on the weekends then, Jay? What's pulling out of the garage?
I'm well this week I am without a car because I don't know, I've just been moving around a lot, but the guy who lives across the street, who is the caretaker over there, drives me around, and
Beautiful.
yeah, a lot of times when I come here, I rent a Tesla or something.
Yeah.
Although I'm thinking of organizing an anti-Tesla league. Once Musk endorsed Trump, I just thought, seriously, all these left-wing Californians are buying this car. I mean,
I say it all the time. I say it all the time. But also I say that why do we expect so much from these business owners? Like most people at that level are Trump.
Personally, I'm able to separate the art from the artist as it pertains to Elon and his automobiles. Exactly. I don't know if you guys can do that or not.
Yeah, well, it's tough.
That's the interesting question. Can you? I mean, for instance, Hemingway, the more we learn about him, he's just kind of a terrible person.
Not great. Yeah, not great.
Or Prince, this whole Prince documentary, which may not get released. The issue really is, how do you separate out the genius artist from the man with all of his flaws? And
well, we were at a Disney Emmy party last night, and the band was happily playing Michael Jackson. Nothing matters, it's all good, man. It's all no. I think if you, I think that
another good example.
If you contributed something that, like, Prince, I think is the best comp for Michael Jackson. Like, if you contributed like basically the American songbook to an entire generation, you're kind of forgiven, especially if you're dead. You're fine.
Yeah.
But like Elon Musk, he looks dead, but he's still alive. And it's it doesn't work that way. It's not the same thing. You know what I mean? Also, a car is not art. That's the issue.
That's
a car
true.
is not.
Slow down.
Yeah. I don't know. I will admit it. I own one.
Yeah. No, most people do.
It's a damn fun car to zip around town in, isn't it?
It is. And in fact, the way that I convinced my wife that it wasn't a stupid idea was that I rented a couple of times out here, and I just show. I mean, in Malibu, it's like it's practically the mascot vehicle.
You
go over
it comes with the house.
Cross Creek Village there. Right across the way, there's 40 or 50 charging stations that are just,
yeah, for sure.
I mean, you never have to use your own electricity.
That's you're saving money on electric. That's
how the rich stay richer down there at the Boo.
The Boo, yes. It's I mean, I realize it's a cliche, but it's a very beautiful place. There's a reason.
There's a reason.
Everyone goes and lives there for a damn reason. It's just that special and amazing.
Yeah. On the other hand, going to West Hollywood is a real pain in the ass.
Hey, fuck you! I'm in West Hollywood right now.
No, I'm just saying. I love West Hollywood.
I'm joking.
West
it's far.
It was my neighborhood for many, many years.
It's far.
It's far from Malibu. That's all I'm saying.
Well, that's the thing about Malibu. You either have to be a writer or you can't work because you're not interacting with anybody except the salespeople at the Chrome Hearts store. You're not. There's not a lot of There's not a lot.
You'll become close friends with a local turtle.
Yeah, there's no deals going down at the Sun Life in the. That's not.
Well, I mean, there's the Soho House Malibu. You got some big dicks swinging over there.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true.
Soho House in Malibu is I think it's the only one that has separate membership. You have to apply separately to Malibu, and
I've only been once for a lunch, and I was a little underwhelmed. I have to say, I was like, "This ain't." I don't get it. It took me an hour to get here, and I can't even really get in the ocean. Like I don't I don't really understand. I can get my chips and guac somewhere closer.
Yeah. Well. Again, you don't go for the food, but
no, you don't go for the food. That's right. No,
especially at Soho House.
But I think it's supposed to be limited to creative types.
Well, that's the whole problem is that they've never been profitable, famously. So it's like this whole thing where they started letting in kind of the banker and finance types and strayed from the original message, but they needed to make money because they were. Not.
I remember, I was actually a member in London years ago, but that was pretty boho. But but as soon as it opened in New York, they had to
Yeah.
just cast a very broad net. You know,
I mean, it costs too much money to operate shit like that in New York. You have to call a bathtub a pool. You know, somebody
Yes.
somebody dies in the tub. You know, and everybody kind of looks the other way. It's the history isn't great.
Well,
but I mean,
I guess speaking of dying in the tub, I know you spent some time. You were talking about the Chateau Marmont earlier.
Yeah.
When you were kind of running around L.A. 80s, 90s with Bret Ellis, you got any good stories of those days?
Let me see. I first came out here in '84, and you know, at the time, it was the tail end of the whole entertainment industry coke epidemic, but there were still like dealers in the parking lot at Le Dome, and
smart. That's good business. That's good business.
yeah, my agents were very happy to see me arrive, and we would, of course, go to Le Dome every night. And
could you explain Le Dome for our younger listeners, perhaps?
Well, it was a restaurant on Sunset Boulevard. I mean, it was definitely an entertainment industry hangout, but a lot of people who didn't necessarily go to Le Dome to eat would stop by to see the ballets.
You're saying that, okay. I understand. I'm seeing a theme in your restaurant visiting.
I'm just gonna go pop in.
I'm just gonna pop in. I'll have an appetizer or something. You know, get out.
Well, what you do is you go to Morton's first, or the Ivy, or Spago. So when I first came to LA, those are the three entertainment industry restaurants, maybe Le Dome as well. So you'd go to one of those places, and you'd have and the dinner hour here was absurdly early to a New Yorker. You know, it was like 6:30 was like prime time because people would go from their offices to the restaurant, and then they'd go home. And it was also absurd that hardly anybody drank because of the driving thing. And I mean, I remember just having a meeting with some producer, and so I thought, okay, I'll be conservative. So I ordered a glass of Chardonnay, sort of first, and then with my steak, I had a glass of Cabernet. And so then the next day, my agent called up the producer to see how the dinner had gone, and the guy said, well, I mean, Jay was very interesting, but he was really slamming the drinks, And I thought, shit. I mean, I tried so hard not to slam the drinks.
Guy had 2 glasses of Pinot. He's a real lush.
I know. I thought I was virtually sober. There was a strange dichotomy at that time between people who were still hedonists and people who'd gone crazy for a couple of years, and then their whole social life revolved around AA,
Yeah.
And everything was also about automobiles. And for some reason, I knew people who were rich as hell who refused to get a driver. And in New York, you wouldn't think of driving yourself anywhere. And this was the era in New York of the stretch limo. But in LA, everybody had to drive their own car. I don't know why.
It's still like that. I mean, that's like what the culture is. It's just, I think that's in the fabric. I don't think it's going anywhere.
Yeah, we're just really good at driving drunk in LA is the thing.
It's the video game is easier here for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
When
I don't know what it is.
How often I used to drive drunk, I'm happy that I made it out the other side and that I have no DUIs.
Oh, hell yeah. Me neither.
Baby.
Me neither. I'm also, so you
the day is young, Jay.
Yeah, you still got time. The Tesla doesn't drive itself, all the time.
I was in San Francisco the other day, and there's all these self-driving cars there. It's like freaks me out.
Yeah, it's seeing those is it's weirder than seeing the food delivery robots in West Hollywood. I will say.
It is. And imagine those cars in LA. People would really rebel against that. Right?
No, they would throw their hands up. They would throw their arms up.
I've seen a couple. I mean, all I think about is just a hacker somewhere just
exactly
popping into the controls of that thing and
kidnapping you,
doing some damage. Jay, we've been interviewing you for the last 50 minutes. When's the last time you interviewed somebody?
Let's see. I mean, I still do occasionally, but I can't think of when the last one was.
You did some airmail. You did an airmail story recently, right? Or was
I did a book review for airmail.
That's right. I mean, that's not an interview, but
every 2-3 times a year, I do a review for the New York Times book review, or for the Wall Street Journal airmail. But I haven't God, I don't feel like I've interviewed. I actually did write a story recently for Alta magazine, which is a great magazine, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
It's devoted strictly to California, but basically after I moved here, I kind of wanted to know the history of the place, and Will Hurst asked me if I would consider, writing a piece about the colony. So I interviewed as many people as I could, who'd been here a long time. There wasn't much about the history of this place, and I had a really interesting time doing, like my neighbors, my next door neighbor, this woman has been here for like 55 years, and so I wanted to know what it was like. And her son was telling me about, seeing the Byrds play and
Sick.
on the beach in 1966.
Birds the band, not the animal. Just to be clear,
Jane Fonda
With a Y.
invited them to play, and they were like, they were sort of hanging out, smoking pot, watching the Byrds play on the beach, which was much wider at that point.
There's more beach to be had.
But there's this place has a really interesting history, and originally it was called the Malibu Movie Colony, and Mrs. Ringe, in an attempt to prevent the state from building a highway through here, rented all these plots to movie stars. You had all the silent era stars had places here, and the places were just originally built by set designer, and for many, many years it was it was Chaplin and Paulette Goddard and their ilk here, all the way up till the sort of Cary Grant generation, and then starting in the late 60s, you had a lot of rock and roll people moving in. There was a music manager who had a house here, and Linda Ronstadt was here, and the Stones were here, and Led Zeppelin was here, and there were these distinct periods, but there was a lot of interesting shit that happened here in the colony.
I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know any of that.
Sounds like a book to me, Jay. Is all I'm saying.
I wish I could have been to some of those parties.
Yeah, that's the main takeaway for me as well.
Back when Malibu was Malibu, brother.
That's the main takeaway for me. What is your consumption like media wise these days? Are you reading a few newspapers? Are you online? Are you getting newsletters?
I still like newspapers, and in New York I get the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the New York Post delivered, and the Post is for crime and gossip.
The best. Mm-hmm. No one does it better. That's for sure.
Yeah. I was just over at the Malibu newsstand a couple of days ago, right after the debate. And I usually buy the Times and the Post there, and so the guy who runs it he's quite amusing. And the New York Post had a front page that was all devoted to like migrant crime, and I said, "Isn't this an interesting oversight that the New York Post forgot to mention the debate on their front page?"
That's right. That's right.
And he said, "Yeah, it's a terrible oversight. We'll have to ask them about that."
I'm gonna file an official complaint with those guys over there.
The Post will get around to it eventually.
See what they say. But what do you think of the newsletter boom? As far as every writer kind of picking one up and having a direct kind of relationship with their reader.
Well, I mean, I think it's a wonderful thing. In some ways, Substack is connecting with a lot of writers, with a lot of people. I think I keep meaning to do it, but I haven't. I sort of feel like I might see if there's some place for me in the media universe after I get this novel published. But
yeah.
But maybe this is just yet to be interviewed now.
I mean, it's a lot more fun. I don't think that. I mean,
less editing.
Think that you also come from an era where it's like you kind of have these bodies of work that come out, and it's a little bit of an ebb and flow in your life.
It is, yeah.
And I think with this stuff and the way it's turned, it's the idea is that you're always on consistently creating because you owe it to the people that are paying you versus like I walked into the bookstore and bought a book. It's a very different relationship with the reader.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Ari Melber's been telling me that I should go on Substack, but at the same time, it seems like a lot of pressure to like comment on everything that happens in the culture every day or every week, or I don't know. Also fraught with peril. I mean, it's like just reading the comments sections of pieces that are published about me, pieces that I publish. It's kind of scary, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fans suck. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, yeah. That no one can argue that. I mean,
Yeah, all right.
I just
We can
think
quote you on that.
obviously everyone has an opinion, but I think once you're able to be anonymous and kind of spit venom as you see fit, it devolves very quickly.
Yeah, well, honestly, you know, in the mid 1980s, I was such a target. I mean, there just wasn't a day that went by that I wouldn't pick up the New York Post and some waiter had sold my conversation with Bret Easton Ellis to, you know, and you know, and picked out the most salacious parts too. and you know, and Spy magazine was constantly writing about us. I mean, Brad and myself were particular targets, I think, because we were so successful and because we went out all the time and because we were, you know, we were.
You like talking a little shit too.
Yeah, we like talking a little shit, and we were nightclub kids, you know. I mean, and unfortunately, there's just far too many pictures of us coming out of nightclubs.
There's no denying you can't.
2:30 in the morning with our eyes on wires, you know. I mean,
you're not
the pudding.
You're not beating the charges, is what you're saying. There's nothing you can say.
Exactly. But yeah, I think that there came a point where, I mean, man, it was just wearying, you know. It was really that was when I bought a house in Nashville for a while. Was I just like, God, I just
need a break.
I just got to opt out of this ecosystem for a while, and it all eventually calms down, and you know, and I think maybe, and there are cycles of resentment and celebration, and you know, I think I might have finally eased myself out of the resentment segment of the cycle. And, you know, I mean, there were a couple of really nice pieces lately in Airmail and the New York Times about the 40th anniversary of Bright Lights, Big City.
Yeah.
And I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, the Airmail piece I knew was coming out, but the Times was a total surprise. And I really, I don't know, it was really nice to see that, you know, people were still reading the book, talking about the book, and not hating on it.
I mean, look, the book is kind of a classic, and I feel like if you read it at the right age, especially, you have like an affinity for it. And I think there's some things that just, you know, luckily everyone can kind of agree on. You know what I mean? And maybe not at the time, but with a little bit of
It's
distance.
a big reason why Chris lives in New York right now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean that is like that's what you want your experience in New York to be like. You know, so you try to find that after you read a book like that, and that just doesn't happen much anymore.
I've been trying to keep my head down lately, and I mean, at this point, you know, my hair's getting gray, and I don't know. Maybe, you know, maybe I'm going to get some respect on this next book.
There we go. You'll get some respect. Jay, thank you for joining us on How Long Gone. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. It was great.
Have fun in Malibu, and we'll see you in
Jay, what's for dinner tonight? What are you cooking up?
I don't know about tomorrow night. I'm going to Nobu.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think tonight I might just try and cook something here for myself. I'm going to go see what they have at Whole Foods, and
okay,
love it.
Yeah.
Take it easy. I'm alone here for the moment, so visiting a few friends. I mean, we now have. We have Lucky's across the street.
Yeah,
that came from.
They opened one in New York. You know, on Lafayette.
I just what New York needs, another steakhouse.
It's literally the size of a post. I went to the opening and I was like, "Is this all of it? Is there another floor or something?" I was like, "Is this what are we doing?" It's like 8 tables.
I don't understand the reasoning, but anyway, I should check it out. Well, we also have this new place called Zinke Bar here, which is kind of a bistro. I mean, you know, at least there's a few choices there. You know, Santa Monica and Venice are, you know, fair way away.
Plenty to eat in Santa Monica. Dip over to Rustic Canyon, maybe.
I mean, Santa Monica. I mean, Felix is great. There's some good food there.
Oh yeah.
Thanks, Jay.
Well, thanks for
Jay. We appreciate it.
Thanks for talking to me.
Of course.
Our pleasure.
This was really fun.